Welcome in to TWMP Daily. I'm Scott Faughn, joined by the indomitable Jake Crozen. Thank you so much for making the time, Jake.
Of course, Scott.
We're going to be joined by Doug Beck in a second. We had a problem. The FCC has a law. Only so many Doug Becks could be on screen at once. So what we're going to do is call 3D Doug with Flat Doug here. We're grunting this out on a very somber day in the state capitol. The former U.S. Senator, Governor, State Auditor, Kid Bond is memorial services today. What an amazing man.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you can rank a statesman above Kid Bond in our state's history.
No, I mean, if I ever talk to any of my relatives about state politics, the only name that ever seems to come up is Kit Bond. And I think that's for a lot of people who, like, after he passed away, a lot of the tributes I saw is everybody has a Kit Bond story, whether they met him for 5 minutes or they knew him their whole life.
we're going to bring in Doug now and see if we can get him on the phone. And yes, we are doing this as old school as you possibly can. Senator Doug Beck, is this 3D Doug?
This is 3D Doug.
You're joined by Jake Crozen, myself, and Flat Doug here. Thanks for making the time. I'm sorry the technology's a problem. I'm sick. The technology's messed up. Kids passed away. I mean, there's a PQ in the Senate. Hospitals are closing in Salem and Pipescott County. I'm calling you at a sour time, I think.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then we all have to think about this the tornado that came through here.
Oh man,
yeah,
on Friday, and the devastation is beyond comprehension to some extent. And I've been out there, and I know you have too, helping. And I think that needs to be in the forefront of what we're talking about here. And I would like to thank the first responders, the numerous amounts of volunteers out there doing things, and it's just hard to describe, and it's such a shame.
Well, how's your house, Doug? Did you all have any damage?
No, we didn't. We were spared. It went north of where we are.
How about your kinfolks? Your kinfolks all right?
Everybody's fine in my family, so yeah.
I saw the most amazing things when I was there. I saw the most amazing things when I was over there. I saw trees that had probably been there since Pierre Laclede founded the place, and they were pulled up by their roots, just tipped over. The entire root system come up out of the ground, probably 10, 12 feet in the air, some of them. It was an amazing sight to behold.
Yeah, no, it was. And then there was we went north on the Martin Luther King Boulevard, and entire buildings were collapsed and on top of cars. And it's just, these are a lot of folks who don't have resources to begin with. And to have this happen, it's just horrible. And then we had the downpour last night, and all the more storms last night came through, and those folks, a lot of them stayed in their homes, and those tarps are probably not holding up.
Well, yeah, you're in construction. A tarp will keep light rain and drizzle. It'll keep the dew off you, but there's no tarp that's going to keep a thunderstorm from leaking water into your house.
Yeah, no, 100%. And a lot of these folks don't want to leave their home. They don't want to
sure.
leave. Just because that is their home, right? And some of it's been in their family for years and years and years. So it's sad. Hopefully we can get some relief here, and maybe some. We expected more bad weather tonight, so that's not good either. So anyway, it's a bad situation, and hopefully the only thing good I see coming out of this is the community's really come together, and it's been amazing to watch people pitching in.
I've seen that. I've also seen a little bit of rancor. It's kind of sad, part of it. I mean, you got a new mayor that just took over, and a lot of optimism. Anytime there's a new executive, but what is the status of things? I mean, I guess I when I was mayor of Pop Bluff, we had a tornado, and I tell you, our local folks went out and handed out waters, and then folks came out of the woodwork with chainsaws. SEMA was there in a day. FEMA was there in 2 days. It feels like it's taken a minute, right?
Yeah, it is. It's taking a little bit of time. I think they're coming in today. I believe tomorrow. I think FEMA's coming in to do some assessments to where they can start freeing up some more of that money. I've been in contact with both with the city, also with Senator Roberts and Senator May and Congressman Wesley Bell, and having conversations with them. Even though none of this is my area, I still feel it's important that we all pitch in and do what we can. There is some some SEMA resources coming here, so that's good. But they can only do so much until they get an assessment. So that's going to happen tomorrow, I believe. FEMA's coming in here to get assessment, and as you know, or you've heard, it was like 1.6 billion, and that was just the first part of it. Looking at it, so I think it's going to be a huge amount here. So,
Well, let's talk into session. It kind of had this feeling that new governor, new floor leaders, new pro tem, new speaker, everything was just kind of floating along. Now I know, you're in the super minority, but there was legislation passing. I'm sure some of it you even liked. Then it felt like everything was kind of on a little bit of a, it was building up to the season finale, but everything was on course. And then the House killed House Bill 10, and it felt like a very different feeling came in the Capitol.
19, yeah.
19, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and that's frustrating itself. There was, the nuclear reactor where they're doing cancer research, some mental hospital over in Kansas City, side Independence, I believe. There's a hospital down, as you know, that probably won't be able to survive that was in that bill without that little infusion of money. And was that in Pepsi or wherever?
Yep, down in Boot Hill.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating to see that. And as you know, Scott, a lot of these things were a part of other global deals that were put in 19. And so those promises were broken. And it's frustrating when you see those kind of things happen. And that kind of set the ball rolling on other stuff and I don't know if that was a personal issue or if that is just House versus Senate. I'm not sure exactly how that all played out. I don't understand it.
Well, let's take it on the merits, though, Senator. I mean, to me, if the House's message was we didn't have enough time to look at this bill, well, it came out of committee Wednesday, which is late. It got sent over Friday. Senate bills, appropriation bills don't really change on the floor much. This one didn't either. So they said 3 days. Some would say they only saw it when it was actually sent over. That's, okay. And it was too much money, which, I mean, people can agree with that. They can disagree with that. Those are arguments that are very valid and fine. If that's your argument, I'm not sure how much the timing thing goes because, I mean, most of this bill was things the House had already passed. But okay, fine. That's your argument. The thing about not having enough money, fair enough. That's how you feel. That's how you feel. Then just the political gods cursed them, didn't they?
No, and I think what you said there, the first part is like they didn't have enough time to look at it. Well, it's pretty interesting. They had enough time to look at the governor's proposal that came out of nowhere. And,
that's what I was going to say. I mean,
the House is very hypocritical to say that they didn't have time to look
but
at
I don't think it was hypocritical on the day they did it, right? Now, would I agree with it? I don't know about the timing. That seems a little, but fine, right? That's your position. They're duly elected legislators. Good for them. They don't have enough time and there's not enough money. Okay, fine. I mean, reasonable people could agree or disagree with that, but that's the story, and that's their prerogative, and that's their as elected leaders, that's their prerogative to go with that or not go with that. But by God, Monday, the political gods just put a cursing on them. A $1 billion stadium proposal for the Royals comes out that day. That's twice the money, and it kind of stymies some of their arguments about House Bill 19.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, and it was it was frustrating. And now we're looking at helping people with mental hospitals, things like that, and that was put to the side, and we're looking at funding stadiums for billionaires, and it's troublesome to think about what the priorities could possibly be here. And I'm at the end of the day, I'm honest with you. I represent a lot of interests here. I represent the people in my community, but I also represent working people across the state,
And you represent some of the old boys that are going to be building that stadium. I mean, you're going to have skilled workers to build a stadium. It's going to be union guys that do it, right?
Yeah, and quite frankly, it'll probably be either side of the state line would be the same union folks doing it.
Yeah.
But just being honest with you there. But that being said, I think the priorities are way out of whack here. That became the biggest priority towards the end of session when I had heard about it back in December, that exact same plan. And so I didn't understand the strategy.
Well, but you're a political animal, Doug. The one thing I love about you is when I shake your hand, I can tell you've actually done a day's work. But you're a political guy. You have to respect. Kehoe had this set up so perfectly. I mean, it was a very Mike Kehoe deal. He was going to come in after the budget. He was going to come in and bum rush the House all of a sudden. Then he was going to have that thing on the Senate floor an hour later. Because let's be honest, the Republican primary voters, which are the ones that the legislative leaders are worried about, they're not going to like this. The longer this is out there, this is not getting more popular. He had it set up so perfectly, and then the House had to tank that 19. I think if they wouldn't have tanked that 19, this thing would have got done before anybody even knew what happened.
Yeah, I don't know because of the other big issues, as you know, that were out there that we were thought we were in true negotiations on, whether it was Prop A or HAR 73. So I think those are the bigger issues.
Let's talk about those. Abortion is nuts. Nobody in this state can have a rational conversation about abortion. But let me just see if I understood from talking to you and Senator Laughlin about this. Essentially, you were willing to let a ballot measure go to the ballot if it was just about abortion. But they needed some trans language in there because the trans stuff is deeply unpopular in this state. That's just my read. I'll bet you any polling would show. The reason I like talking to you is I'll bet you the support for boys playing girls sports in Afton is very low. Webster Groves, maybe different. But the further south you go in South County, it is a very, and where you're going to have to win this election if you're them, it seemed to come down to the same ballot candy you all used with Clean Missouri. They want to use the same concept of ballot candy on abortion. And if they would have just done the fight straight up, you would have probably let them do it, right?
So to be clear, I didn't put clean Missouri on the ballot, and the ballot initiatives are different than when they come from the legislature. So just so that's clear that I didn't.
3D Doug's Flat Doug's a little skeptical of you right now. I'm just gonna be honest with you. He's kind of got that smile. He's got that skeptical smile on his face. I'm just saying though, Clean Missouri had ballot candy. You want to do a gerrymandering thing, which fine.
You and I have had this discussion before, so that's.
Well, because I enjoy having folks on my show, and they tell me how, oh my God, we have to include trans and abortion. I'm like, yeah, ballot candy. No. I was like, but it was ballot candy to put ethics and gerrymandering together. Yeah, that was total ballot candy. This is not. I'm like, give me a break.
Yeah, and again, whatever. I'm not going to talk. I was not talking about that. I was just talking about this. But yeah, we look at this as ballot candy. I think it's a bad idea. It's another abortion ban, is what it is.
But they didn't think they could win without the trans stuff, right? That's where it comes down to.
Yes, 100%.
I kind of agree with them a little bit.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because that's a marginalized community, as you know, Scott, and some of these folks, a lot of them have left our state, but other ones, they see these things and then it's, they could be having issues as it is, and now they're looking at doing something else because they feel like everybody's against them, and it's troublesome to me that they use that to try to pass this bad idea.
I agree with you, but I mean they're doing it for, these are rational actors. They're doing it for a reason, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they want to put the trans language on because your average Missourian is not with you, and they side with the Republicans on the trans issue at a far greater number than they side with the Republicans on abortion, correct?
Yeah, no, 100%. I know that's exactly why they're doing it, but it's also there's no good that comes out of that. So it's frustrating to see that, and that's why we try to get that language taken out. And if you want to have this idea of, you think it's fine for a 12-year-old girl who's raped by her dad to have to go get a authorization from her dad to get an abortion, that's what this bill does. That's what this,
So let's just take abortion off the side. Prop A to me, I always kind of felt like this would end with an abortion PQ, and I think the conversation of abortion in this state is so insane that I'm like, yeah, okay, I see it, I get it. But there is an interesting the interesting part of that is on Prop A. It felt like there was a deal that could have been done.
Yeah, and we, hey, I'm just going to be frank about both of these issues because they turned out to be the same. We had heard the rumors all along that they were going to PQ on both of these things. That there was never any true negotiations on either Prop or Amendment 3, and that's what we heard through the halls. This. Everybody was telling us the exact same thing. However, we were not getting that from the leadership. The leadership was saying, "Oh no, we're negotiating. We're going to be here till 6 p.m. on Friday." And when it came to Prop A, we were so close on one of the nights, it was very long, about 2 a.m, I guess it was, and we were tracking it up, and the language was off on the amount. We were going to exempt roughly 83% of the businesses in the state of Missouri. It's about 15% of the workers, but it was about 83% of the businesses. And the language came back, and it was different than what we had discussed. And that part was frustrating. They blamed us. They were tired. They didn't know what they were doing. That was said to me. That was frustrating to hear that. Originally, they said it was always full-time workers, and that was never the case. We never had information. All our data was just employees. So it changed my view of how things were happening when I thought I was in true, negotiations, that people weren't basically lying me or stringing me along or trying to string our caucus along. And those exact same things happened on Amendment 3. And we had to see that. We dealt in good faith this entire session, and we were trying to do that towards the end, and that was not the case on the other
End of the day, though, Prop A, you had some details on how many people would be exempted from this silly plan that the voters voted in. But on the abortion thing, they needed the trans language. You knew that. They knew that. I mean, I don't see how you was ever going to get around that. I think the pro-life community thinks they cannot win because you'll be better funded. They may be better funded than they were last time, but getting a yes is much harder than a no. They need the trans language to do that. I don't know how you ever got around that. But on Prop A, it felt like it could have been done. Let me just ask you, when the PQ came down, I mean, to me, I just carry a bucket around at the end of session to catch all the shit people give me because I think these PQs are so terrible. But I also think they're a failure of you and Cindy. Am I wrong? Did you feel like you let the Senate down when you left the Capitol Wednesday night?
No, I did not. I mean, we put everything on the table. No, I did not. Our caucus put everything on the table. We were negotiating all the way up until they said they couldn't negotiate anymore, and that all coincided with us shutting down legislation. Right? They didn't want to keep passing things while they were doing this, and that's part of the reason why they shut it down. They weren't getting any of the other little, the nuggets they were trying to get passed through the Senate.
You're a thoughtful man who I totally believe cares about this state, though. Looking back on this session, I mean, to me, a PQ is a failure of 34 people. You could maybe argue one side's a little more than the other. Normally, the majority leadership takes a bigger hit for it. But is there anything you could have done differently to avoid the smear on the Senate that took place Wednesday?
So what I'm going to tell you, Scott, is if the PQ would have came up organically at the end and we just couldn't come to a deal, and that's one thing. But this was already predestined. They did this in January. They had people sign on for PQs in January. So to literally say that happened. Well, one of the senators told me they signed something in January for a PQ. Wasn't sure what it was. I guess they just blindly signed things. I don't know. That was said. Apparently, 3 or 4 weeks out, they had already determined they were going to a PQ, and we were just getting strung along. So we had to do that in good faith. We couldn't listen to all the rumors. If I had reacted to every rumor I heard in that building, we would never get anything done.
Sure.
Right? So that's just the facts. And if you talk to anybody in the caucus, they're going to tell you the exact same thing. And
okay, let's talk about the allegation the Republicans make. I don't know how publicly, but certainly privately, is that this Prop A was on the floor 2 nights. The first night, they'll say, well, maybe we could have went a little longer. If we'd have thought this would actually worked, we might have. The second night, they say you were having to call Washington and the folks that funded Prop A and kind of coordinate with them. Is that accurate?
That is not accurate at all. We were talking to, actually, the guy we were talking to, very well, was the president of UFCW 655. So you know him really well.
And I love Dave Cook. I ain't going to bullshit you.
So
The labor movement in this state and the state overall will be worse in August when Dave Cook retires. I believe that firmly with everything in me.
Great guy. So he's the big boogeyman that they try to put out there and all these other things. I will also tell you, too, these offers that were made, they never did show the rest of their caucus, and I don't know if they ever had a chance to make that decision. So that's frustrating in itself. So I will tell you, we were close on those things, and then when we go back in, they move the numbers, they move the goalposts way beyond what we were talking about. 75 people. any, just different things. If you're under 18, you can't get minimum wage, just stuff like that.
Let's look forward a little.
Exempt hospitals. So
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Senator, how do you feel about the idea that, do you think HB 19 and the failure to pass that really exacerbated a lot of the issues, or do you think that in the end there were still going to be PQs?
Yeah, I believe there was going to be PQs there. Now, I mean, after looking back on it, yes, there was going to be a PQ on it all along. And if they wanted to work on that, if they would have worked on that simply in that language, they could have had all those things. They could have had, they could have had the amendment go clean. They could have, unfortunately, Prop A, the way they had it, even slashing it completely without a PQ.
So just to be clear, Senator, your take on this was that if they would have taken the trans language out of the abortion IP, they could have got the abortion IP with no PQ. They could have got Prop A, their version with no PQ, and they could build the Royals, a team that barely draws 3,000 people, a 30,000-seat stadium.
That was offered, yes. That was 100% offered.
Well, let's talk about going forward, though. I think the PQ is bad. I think that whatever government you hate the most in this state, thank the Missouri Senate and its traditions for keeping you from having to have it. But I've always watched these things blow up like Wile E. Coyote. It's so funny. You watch Wile E. Coyote holding the Acme cannonball, and you're like, that's some bitch. That thing's going to blow up. And it does every time. You're like, why are you holding that again, Wile E.? Last Saturday morning, you was holding that damn bomb, and it blew up. The last 3 Saturday mornings. If I had to guess, this Jobs with Justice folks, right? Yes. Which are essentially the Federalist Society. They kind of do things to Missouri, not necessarily for Missouri. They're like the Federalist Society to me. The truth is they're going to put a workers' Bill of Rights right back on the ballot, but this time in the Constitution, this time with a great narrative of the people passed it, the politicians vetoed the people, so put it in the Constitution, and they're going to win, right?
Yeah, I would believe that, and whatever that looks like, I'm not sure what that looks like at this point.
It'll look like whatever they want. They're paying for it.
Yes.
And I think they'll win. And this PQ will be the Wile E. Coyote holding the bomb. It's going to blow up. Then on the abortion thing, boy, I would say even with the trans language, I think you have to be very optimistically pro-life to say this is a 50-50 proposition. Every ballot measure with organized and funded opposition starts off behind the 8 ball. What do you give? Just take your Senate hat off and your political hat on. I would give a 40 to 45% chance today of the Republicans running an exclusively trans campaign and overturning the abortion Amendment 3. Where would you put it at?
I think that's probably pretty accurate. It's got maybe a little bit above 50% that's what it's on, because I don't know how the rest of it they sell.
Well, Mallory's going to fund the hell out of this thing, right? I mean, the same people that passed Amendment 3 is going to come back and defend it. I mean, they had to know they would have to, right?
Yeah, and I think first there's probably going to be some, there's some court stuff, right? So single subject probably in there, and then there's also the summary about the language is.
When is the last time this court made an IP with a single issue? That's
a good question.
I'm not smart enough to criticize the court, but I would say this: that Hammerschmidt stuff, they don't give a damn about that anymore, or on an IP.
I'm not confident that happens, and I don't know that anybody else is, but I think there is an opportunity there.
Sure.
There's an argument for that.
Well, if anybody can get it done, Chuck will get it done, right?
I mean, yeah. And that being said, the one thing that's really frustrating is, as you know, is when we go to these bills and these IPs and these HJRs, they have a summary on them in the legislature, and the first thing it says is to repeal the Reproductive Rights Act, and literally that's not anywhere in what they're doing. So,
well, do you read all that shit? I never read that shit. Jake, do you ever read this ballot summary?
No.
Do you ever read that shit?
No. Yeah, the first things that are on your.
The first line, yeah, whatever the headline is.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, you maybe in Webster Groves you do, but nobody in Afton reads all that shit. I don't believe that for a second.
It's only 50 words. It's not hard to do.
It's all legalese, though.
I'm not much of a reader myself. Kelton, do you read that stuff at the bottom of a ballot question?
Not usually.
Yeah, no one does. Doug's just trying to look intelligent for his Webster Groves constituents right now.
I don't even think the lawyers read it when they go to the I don't even think they really understand it when they go to the ballot.
Well, I think this campaign is going to be who can fund it enough. If it's defined on should men play women's sports in high school and college, it'll go down. If it's defined as about abortion, I think the pro-life folks have a tough road to hoe.
Yeah.
And again, the rape and incest stuff is good, but in a campaign, you only have so many things you can communicate.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be hard to communicate trans and exceptions and all this.
I think a lot of the people who could determine the Amendment 3
total
ban,
ban,
yeah.
is really what it is.
All right, so in the history of PQs, most of them blow up into nothing, right? These two PQs, what's the chances you would give them that both of them are upheld 2 years from now by the voters?
I think the voters get what they want. I think at the end of the day, we win on both of these issues. Just like you just mentioned, every other PQ over time, I don't know of any that actually became in state law, and maybe you know a lot more about the history than I do, but I've seen it with minimum wage in 17.
Right to work?
Yeah, right to work was that a PQ? I don't think it was a PQ, but right.
Oh
to
yeah,
work,
they PQ'd right to work, and then you guys put it on the ballot to overturn it. It was some trick Burke came up with.
I don't think it was PQ'd. I think
it was.
PQ'd
Tom
before,
Dempsey
but
walked on the Senate floor and made the motion, and Tom Dempsey was against right to work. It was one of the greatest statesman moves I've ever seen. Tom Dempsey left the dais and went down to his desk, and he made the PQ motion. And I think he actually voted no on the actual bill, but he told his caucus he would do their will, and he did. It was a real moment of statesmanship by Tom Dempsey. I'm 99% sure he voted no on right to work, but I know he made the PQ motion.
That wasn't in 17.
No, that was before. That was in like 14.
Yeah, that's
And
when
Nixon
it was.
vetoed it.
Nixon vetoed it, right.
Yeah.
And then we overturned the well. So yeah, you're okay. Yes.
Right. But I mean, going back in that same session, there was a PQ and veto session. I thought it honestly the most justifiable PQ I've ever seen, and Amendment 3 a few years later come in and knock that off. Of course, I guess that lasted for 10 years, but anyhow, they have a very bad history of being successful. I mean, Kim Gardner left because Andrew Bailey was going to literally throw her out the door, not anything to do with the legislature in that PQ.
Right.
So they're a little bit cursed. I do think there is a chance. I mean, you know, we're saying maybe the right to life cause could get along, but you were sitting right beside Searpoy and Bernskatter and Bean and Mary Elizabeth. I mean, and Sandy Crawford. I mean, the pro-life side does not exactly look like a cohesive bunch right now.
Yeah, but they all voted for it. So at the end of the day, so
That's true. I mean, that is
they
the
had a big speech and then voted for it. So
you're right. I mean, if you're Missouri Right to Life, yeah, that probably sucked to get dogged out for 20 minutes. But I mean, you came here this session to get something and you got it. So let's talk about the stadiums. Now, I heard you and Weber on the floor. Those were the two speeches that stood out to me from Wednesday when the die was cast. And both of you basically said, this will not be forgotten. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I've watched these things before. 7 months later, you come back, you've done the holidays, you're kind of tired of your family. You want to come down here and eat the free shrimp and everybody laugh at your jokes.
Hang out at High Street Pub.
Hang out at the pub. Everybody kind of gets a little bit over it in 7 months. It's kind of hard to stay red-assed for 7 months. Now, I'm German, so I hold a grudge for decades, but it seems to me like that you guys would have done something, but they probably escaped relatively unscathed over 7 months. Now, you might disagree, but that has been the history of these things. However, again, the gods of politics come in, and Kehoe's bringing y'all back in special session 2 weeks later. Who's going to speak first in special session?
Yeah, I don't know how that all plays out, and I don't want to show my cards anyway, but our caucus is really united on this issue of how.
Well, they don't have here's the problem.
Towards the end, and
you don't have to filibuster. I mean, here's the thing. This is my view. You tell me where your hillbilly pal is wrong. From the southern end of 67, what you would call Lindbergh, it looks to me like they got about a dozen votes for a stadium, for taxpayer-funded stadiums. You don't have to filibuster when you have the votes. You don't have to filibuster this. They don't without your caucus. I don't see how this passes. Do you?
Yeah, and again, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know what the package looks like. I really would hope we were focusing on some things that can actually help people in Missouri instead of this. I mean, we got this going on in St. Louis with these storms. We had just another declaration of federal funds are coming for different counties down in your area. So this should not be our focus, and I don't know what they're going to have to pair with it, as you would call it, ballot candy, to try to get this.
Well, that's special session candy. Call that special candy.
Yeah, special candy, whatever they're going to put with that to try to cobble together whatever votes they think they're going to get. Now, I haven't talked to anybody about this, so.
Well, let me just ask you your thoughts. I mean, if you walk in after the speech you gave Wednesday, before the PQs started flying, before Speaker Bean, who I thought they did a very good job in the dais, he ought to have a career in the House. I will say, I do think if you walk in there, and Weber too, though both of you there, if you just walk in there and vote for the Royal Stadium, who's going to take you seriously after that?
Yeah, no, that's 100% true, and I don't see that happening with anybody in our caucus. Quite frankly, it is what we're gonna look at this, how it goes. I think it's interesting they have a special session for this when they could have done this at the beginning of the session. And maybe you're right, they can't even, they can't get it through their own people. So at the end of the day, they're going to have to try to count on Democratic votes.
Well, in the House, they gave them Democratic votes. Is this something you call Ashley on it? Because I don't. Boy, if they have 82 votes for this in the House, I mean, they have 82. They don't have 85. Do you call Ashley Ani and say, "Hey, is this something we work on together?" And say we're not moving forward unless we move forward together?
Again, Scott, you can say I'm a good politician. So
you are.
So I won't be answering any questions as far as what we do as we.
Well, let me give you a hypothetical. Is there a way? Is this special session just a total waste of time, or is there a way that your caucus could lend the Republicans 5 or 6 votes to pass this? Is there something the Governor Kehoe could do that would entice your caucus to give the Republicans the votes to build this stadium in Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you should have conversations with folks. I don't know. Maybe you should have a conversation with me. That'd be a start on something. I don't know if it helps or not. I also think he had an opportunity to help at the end of session to do this instead of trying to get votes for stadiums. He could have had quite a few votes, and it would have passed easily if it would have helped with other issues. So,
yeah, it feels to me like you, and it's almost fortuitous we have Flat Doug. Flat Doug doesn't give up any of your secrets. That old boy, he should be in the mafia. He doesn't talk at all. But it seems to me like you got to go express yourself a little when this thing opens up. And if I'm the Republicans, in the Senate, I'm like, yeah, you take all the time you need to say whatever you need to say. But at some point, there's a way through this.
And I don't know what that looks like. I'll just be, I'll be honest with you.
Well, could Stephen Weber turn down the $50 million for a nuclear reactor that literally cures people, that founds cancer innovations over the anger of the PQ? And I mean, I would think Stephen Weber probably votes for us. I mean, first of all, if it was just the Chiefs Stadium, y'all probably just do that, right?
Yeah. So let's be clear on, like the nuclear reactor, that $50 million, that was part of another deal, right? That was part of a deal that was broken. That is nothing new coming to any of us. That is nothing new. That was a whole part of the deal with the degrees to go to other schools. This is all part of a deal that was collapsed. So a lot of the things that you see are part of other things, as you know, so it's not like they're getting something new. It's not like you're being offered something. You're offered something that was already offered to you. For example, Senator Lewis she came to a deal on Section 8 housing, and there was a bunch of other things that were supposed to happen, and none of those happened. So it's like we're disrespected, and I'm not acting like I'm hurt or anything, And when I meant
you sound a little pissed off.
Well, yeah, I am pissed off, right? So there's a lot of promises that were broken. There was a lot of basically lying to my face, and my caucus members, and I don't take that lightly. That's why I said what I said on the floor. That was as measured as I possibly could be, and I don't do that. That is not my nature. You know me. I don't set out idle threats. I don't do things like that. 2 weeks before the session, I had a senator come to me, and I did a favor for this senator, and that same exact senator came up to me and goes, "Thank you so much, whatever I can do for whatever you do." And they voted for both PQs. I'm frustrated beyond It's frustrating when you think you have these relationships that you don't.
Was maybe look. I think John Patterson is a very high level operator, a very serious person. To me, is John Patterson the one that needs to come talk to Doug Beck? It is his county, the stadium his area, the stadium be built in.
Yeah, and maybe he does talk to me. I don't know. There's a lot of things there that were just towards the end of the session there. A simple thing happened. I'm just going to lay it all out there. I had a Senate concurrent resolution to have a day for the Bosnians who experienced genocide, Srebrenica. I always have a hard time saying that word. And didn't do anything. Wasn't anything for me. It was for the Bosnian community. It was about 60,000 here in St. Louis. And
yeah, you don't look real Bosnian.
No, and we were one step away. And it was in the House. And he said it was going to happen that Friday, knowing good and well that they weren't even going to be in that Friday. I was talking to him Thursday morning, and he didn't do it. And all he had to do, and the Representative Haruza had the HCR. That's frustrating to me. That's literally nothing. It was nothing for me. It was for these people. And actually, it was presented by a St. Louis County police officer who's a Bosnian who brought it to me in the first place. And so frustrating. He didn't do that. So.
Well, I just think when you're talking about like high-end people that can get things done, John Patterson seems like the kind of guy that could get in a room and do a deal. He seems like the kind of high-level operator that could pull things off. But I mean, look, the interesting box is if you're going to have to bring things to get votes that they need. I'm not even sure Mike Kehoe can get 18 Republican senators to vote to fund a sports stadium with taxpayer money. Maybe, I mean, don't underestimate Mike Kehoe, but I mean, that'd be the greatest deal of all time. That'd be like selling that 82 Ford Ranger with the no air conditioning and the engine blown for $10,000. I mean, it would be, I don't even know how you do it, but it's going to be a little hard for the House to have to go eat crow and redo 19, right? I mean, it looks like there's a lot of issues going into special session, and the only person that can really make the difference is probably the person, folks. I've heard a lot of folks say they wished he was in Jeff City Wednesday. The only person that can pull this off is Mike Kehoe, right? I mean, who else are you going to trust?
Yeah, I don't, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. I don't know who to trust anymore in both sides of the legislature.
Well, I mean, I've never heard you say a bad word about Mike Kehoe as far as being honest.
No, I've never.
Keeping his word.
Look, we didn't have many discussions towards the end. I never, he's never, as far as I, he's lied to me. Or I never had those conversations, right? Yeah, I'm not saying anything. No, I can't say anything bad about him. I can't say anything bad about it.
So give me a prediction. Also, I mean, the Chiefs thing, yeah, everybody loves. They have real fans. I mean, I guess I just question the logic in building a stadium that seats 30,000 people for 3,000 fans. Does anybody else bring that up to you and be like, why are we doing that?
Yeah, no, I mean, we got so many other things going on right now. I think there should be a lot more priorities going on than this. And this should have been taken care of early in session. And I understand what you're saying, the politics of it all. They couldn't get it done, so they had to sneak attack it to bring it in and try to get it before anybody knew what was in the bill, right? The old famous, before they know what's in here. There's already parts of this bill that I know about that are troublesome. and I'm sure some of that will be brought out on the floor. But there's real troublesome aspects of this bill.
Well, they had to land look, you could appreciate that. That's a tough, I mean, getting a stadium publicly funded is not easy. I mean, hell, in Jackson County, they voted it down by a substantial margin. It is a tough vote and a tough thing to do. I actually think Kehoe went about it in the only way you could. It just, there was a landmine put in his place 72 hours before that made it hard to get around. So give me a prediction. Do the Royals have a new stadium?
If it had been addressed, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Yeah, I think so too. I actually think things go, there's a different feeling and vibe. I think it may go a little easier. Now, the abortion thing, I just don't know how you move on the abortion thing. They have to have some ballot candy. You don't want them to have it. I don't know, what you do there. But give me a prediction. Do the Royals get a new stadium?
They'd probably get one somewhere, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's the
Oh, I
question
like
is what
that.
state.
Let me ask you another question. Is there any way the Chiefs don't get whatever they want? However, maybe not in this special session, but is there any way the Chiefs don't just get what they want?
Look, I can't really predict the future, so I just be.
Well, Flat Doug just told me that the Chiefs are going to get whatever they want, whether it's in special session or not. It really doesn't matter. They'll be fine. The Royals could be in Kansas, and it is going to be sad for the tens and tens of Royals fans to have to drive all the way to Kansas to watch the game.
Me and my family, it's going to suck.
And as you know, Scott, I'm a hardcore Battlehawks fan, and before that, I was a Rams fan before they were ripped from us. So that's where I'm at.
And I thought it was interesting. So Jim Murphy on the floor, no, Steve Butts brought up that, Lamar Hunt or Clark Hunt voted to move the Rams.
Yep.
So he goes, now you want me to vote to, he goes, what? Which I thought was very funny by Butts. That was funny.
And you talked about having grudges earlier, so that's the thing too. Also, I will say, and I'm not trying to divide our caucus up or any of that nature or anybody, but anybody on the eastern side of the state to see what's going on over here is going to have a hard time focusing, thinking that stadiums is our top priority issue to be addressing.
Yeah, but your help's going to come from FEMA, right? The only people that are going to, I saw the devastation. The only people with the money to do real disaster recovery is FEMA. It's not going to be from the state. It's going to be from the federal government.
Yeah, because we don't have any. We have very little resources, and they have to look to the government. Federal government is, when 57% of your budget comes from the federal government. But the question is, hopefully these things are taken care of. And I will tell you right now, I've heard nothing but good across the board. Talking to everybody about how everybody's working together at this point. So I want to put that out there right now that everything has been.
I don't think Mike Keogh is going to allow the state government to have any shenanigans in a disaster recovery. I think FEMA it's a slower process than maybe it used to be, but I mean, nobody has the money to come in and seriously address the needs in St. Louis right now except the federal government. That's just the truth.
But also what I'm being told is some of the things that were learned during the Joplin, tornado have been employed here. So that's good to know that we have these state employees that have been around for a long time, and they have this. They have the book, the playbook.
Well, that tornado, as the crow flies, what was it? 2 miles from Nixon's house.
Yeah.
The part of the devastation I saw in the Central West End, it isn't a mile and a half from where Jay Nixon lives now.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, and I know some of those buildings were disrepaired, but if these weren't brick buildings and this is frame buildings, I mean, we're looking at nothing being there.
Is that a commercial for the Bricklayers Union?
It could be.
Senator,
to talk point your house.
Senator, I appreciate the time, and I apologize that technology didn't work. I really think Flat Doug wanted to be the only Doug on the screen. And that's very petty of you, Flat Doug, to be honest with you, but no problem.
We tried.
Yeah, Senator, I appreciate it, and I guess I'll see you sometime next month, right?
I'm assuming so. I mean, we haven't heard the final dates of the final plan yet. So.
We'll go over to Grand and eat some of that tuna, either way.
There you go. Sounds great.
All right, buddy, I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, bye.
It was Senator Doug Beck, a legit good dude, and I get it. I understand the frustration. I mean, especially on the small things. That's always the thing in politics, I think. Speaker of the House is an incredibly hard job. I mean, the only people that could truly understand how hard it is the folks that have had it.
Yeah.
Especially in the session. You have everyone in the state. It reminds me of on Titanic when they're putting the boats in the water.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be some boat that you can form for them and get them out, right?
Yeah.
And some things like that SCR. But that's really, I think, the grease that moves the gears in politics a lot of times is those little things like that. And I have no idea the story. I didn't know anything about the resolution. But the truth is, that's the small things in government that sometimes help move stuff. I don't know. To me, like after a PQ, it's going to be probably hard to work with Cindy and Tony for a minute. Senator Luke DeMeyer and Senator O'Laughlin. If you're the minority leader, you might be a little chapped. But you heard him. He did not say a bad word about Mike Keogh.
Mm-mm.
He did say Patterson might call him, and I think the Speaker Patterson is a serious operator. And look, I think when you look at this, who stands to lose here? I think the Chiefs. They're just thrown in for. I mean,
I think the Chiefs. Yeah, they're going to get whatever they want.
They're going to get what they want, and it doesn't really. The dollar figure's not as big.
Yeah.
The commitment's not as big. Also, it's the Chiefs.
Yeah.
They have legit fans.
Yeah.
Piss off Chiefs Kingdom. See what happens. But the Royal Stadium. Who's going to be mad if the Royals move to Nashville? Let's just say Kansas. I'm not sure that many people are that mad about that. Let's assume the Royals move to Nashville. Who looks bad? I don't think Cindy O'Loughlin gives one damn.
No.
Mike Kehoe will not like that because I think he's going to view it as they left on my watch.
I think there is like a certain state pride element about it, about losing a sports team like that. And I think that's
But
sort
you're
of
not
an
losing
important...
like a good one. You're losing the Royals.
Well, some of us would disagree. The three of us Royals fans who have a fan page together that we would disagree.
What they could do, though, is just put a sheet up at Kaufman or the parking lot that'll be there, and all 10 of y'all could just sit and watch the game transposed into there. And it'd kind of be like being there.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. I don't think that would take much money.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you're John Patterson, you are the first speaker from Kansas City in 150 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You are very highly thought of in that community at the highest end, at the Crosby Kemper highest end, right? I think you don't want to see – you want to see them taken care of, and it's fortuitous to see them taken care of on your watch.
Yep.
Now, to me, it looks like there's a pretty obvious deal forming here, and maybe Mike Kehoe is letting Doug Beck cool off. It is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Session was supposed to end on Friday.
He's got a few more days before.
Maybe let Doug flip some burgers and hot dogs in South County this weekend. And I think if you do look at the situation, though, if you had to look at your stein of knowledge, by the way, thanks to the Courtyard by Marriott and the United Fiber up in the great Northwest, I do think there's a deal coming that is there, right? If you're the Senate Democrats, you're gonna go down, you're gonna lay your thoughts about session on the floor.
Yep.
And if the Tony Luetkemeyer is a very bright man, something tells me he's going to be like, you bet. Because I think Tony Luetkemeyer wants to see this done too. I think Tony Luetkemeyer and John Patterson, the two people in the highest levels of leadership from the Kansas City area, are the ones that want to see this happen. And so if I'm Tony, I'm like, hey, I'm going to sit in my office. I'm going to catch up on work. I'm going to call the wife. I'm going to do whatever. Play crossword. And I'm going to let the Democrats, punch themselves out. And then if they want to quit for dinner, we'll come back and do it tomorrow. We'll do this 2 or 3 days. But at the end of the day, it does feel like there's a deal where you get the Senate version of 19.
Yep.
And then the Democrats give you some votes, right?
Well, I mean, from what it sounds like, they may want more than 19 at that point.
I don't know
a lot of that stuff was promised before.
The helter-skelter part of this would be to open up a blind spending bill.
Yeah.
And then you could have problems with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're the Democrats, what are they going to do? Close on this bill? I mean, let's assume the House comes in and passes the same bill they passed before, right? Or a bill to build a stadium. Well, if you're the Democrats, let's vote on that.
Yeah.
Cool. And it'll go down, 12 to 22?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, Kehoe will bring a couple over that we're not expecting. They'll probably bring the Chiefs players. Mahomes will sign some footballs. But I don't know.
He'll be in the Senate lounge or something.
Oh, yeah. Can Patrick Mahomes sign enough footballs to get Ben Brown to vote for that? I don't know.
I don't know.
If I had to guess, I would say no.
Well, I mean, Senator Nicola has been out saying that he wants to see property taxes cut for Jackson County before he votes for that stadium bill. And I don't know if there's any way of getting – I mean, there might be a way of getting that. I don't know. But I know
I don't think you can get that in a session
–
where the votes you have to turn are Democrat votes.
Yeah.
I think, the machinations of that is a challenge.
Yeah.
So looking into the future, you see a scenario that if I had to guess where the Senate Democrats say, okay, we want 19 done. And, of course, I don't think Flat Doug or 3D Doug's dumb enough to pass something out of the Senate and assume the House will pass it.
Yeah.
I think the House would have to come back in and pass 19, send it to the Senate. They'd have to do 19 first, then do this. I think Doug is good to his word. I don't think he would lie. If his caucus members say that's the deal, that'll be the deal they abide to. Mm-hmm. But if you're Speaker Patterson, like if you're Tony Luetkemeyer, easy. This is great.
Yeah.
Easy deal. You get some, and assuming Tony comes back and he's not the United States Attorney, you get a lot of the steam blown off from the PQs before the next session in January. This deal has a lot of upside for Senator Luetkemeyer.
Yeah. And if he were to leave, that'd be a great way to end your session, is by getting a huge deal like that.
If they don't have Patterson Luetkemeyer throwing out the first pitch at the new Don Dinkinger Stadium, wherever they build it. Listen, Royals, you're not known for doing a lot of things right. if this gets done and you don't have John Patterson or Luke Demeyer throwing out the first pitch at Dinkinger Stadium, you deserve all of the eye rolls that we.
Or
give
if they
you.
don't call it Mike Kehoe Stadium, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's
I
the
don't
man
think
who's
that's
going
going
to
to help Mike Kehoe. Be
that probably wouldn't help with this folks.
I don't know how. but no, to me, if that's the deal, and instead Luke Demeyer can kind of facilitate that, and Mike Kehoe, and you say, okay, House or Speaker, here's the deal. I do think his caucus thinks highly enough of him to do that deal.
Yeah.
Now, some of these things turn into ego fights, right?
Yeah.
Which I definitely think was a part of the 19 issue, and maybe reservedly so, I don't know. But to me, it looks like you're seeing a scenario where Mike Kehoe and John Patterson go for a walk, and, this will be a bigger deal. Now, maybe John Patterson doesn't give a damn.
Yeah.
But if I had to guess, if I'm him, and I'm going to be a high-profile person in Kansas City regardless when this is over, boy, that is a capstone that not just government people understand. Regular people understand that we had our guy there at the right time, in the right situation, and he pulled off this.
Yep.
And so when the Royals, let's say it's September and they win in their 60th game, he'll be saluted.
Yeah. No,
So you don't
I'd
know
have to
baseball.
agree.
That was a total slight on the Royals. But you should win your 60th game by July, sometimes even June, but July for sure, not September.
Is that about the same track the Cardinals are on right now?
It's the damnedest thing. When Mazalot quit trying to make the team better, the team's better. Like last year, they were just awful. The year before that, terrible. This year, they signed no one. They did nothing. And, boy, they're 6 games above 500. They just beat the best team in the American League, just 11-4. I mean, just whooped them.
That's true.
I don't understand it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But, I mean, look, to me, if you're winning, I'm in. It's the losing I hated. So, I mean, I get the joke, and they've deserved it. But right now, I mean, they took 2 or 3 from Kansas City this weekend.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
It was nice that they even took the tarps off the upper deck of Kauffman for the Cardinal fans to come watch.
Of course, we're very hospitable.
I got a
place.
buddy of mine that sent me some shit-eating picture about this is the Royals. They want $1 billion for a new stadium, right? They will have to have votes from St. Louis to get this, right?
Yeah.
They honored the 85 team this weekend. I'm like, this is why this is why you're the Royals right here.
Well, we in Jackson County know how to dig a knife in.
Into yourself. You don't understand. The Cardinals.
I never said it was into another person.
Yeah, the Cardinals don't like the terrorist attack, the 1026 attacks. But but nobody in St. Louis is like, oh, we beat the Royals this weekend. Yes, made that happen. No one even. It's the coldest thing ever. It's like Twitter people to me. Twitter people tweeted me, and I'll see them and I'll be like, you poor thing. Like, if I were to respond, it would make you feel so good about yourself, wouldn't you? So I do the meanest thing I could do. I'm like, oh, no, you want my attention so bad, don't you? Sorry. It's kind of like the Royals would be Twitter trolls.
Yeah.
And trust me, I see your tweets. I know you are trolling me. I ask you, will somebody answer me the question? Why build a 30,000-seat stadium for a team with 3,000 fans? They could play at St. Elizabeth, and they probably could easily fit everyone. They could spread out, I'm tired of making fun of the Royals. I'm sick. We're going to Kit's funeral. Appreciate Flat Doug. Appreciate 3D Doug for calling in. We will no show this weekend, Memorial Day. Enjoy your families. We'll be back a week from today with let's get a good guest. Are you coming back this week?
Of course I am.
Sweet.
That's my job.
I mean, I'm not going to say that Kelton didn't get the technology lined out. I just don't know whose fault it would be if we didn't blame Kelton. Can we blame Gussie?
That seems a little rough.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody's fault that we didn't
Blame
have.
Corn Man.
It was definitely Corn Man.
I
Exactly
mean, look at that
right.
face.
It's a face to blame. It's a face that screams, I have a crappy crew cut.
Face
Suck
that
at my
screams that
job.
my mom doesn't love me.
If she does, she is a very understanding lady. We will see you all back here. Jake will be back here later this week. I will not see you Sunday, but I will see you Tuesday back here for This Week in Missouri Politics.